Hi, my name is Thomas Kolster and I'm here to talk to Yannick Bolloré. And Yannick is the CEO and the chairman of Havas. You might not know Havas, but Havas is one of the biggest advertising and communication groups in the world with more than 100 offices. So you will have seen some of the commercials around the world and on your screens. Yannick, advertising and climate can seem like quite an oxymoron. So why do you care about the climate? Why is the climate important for you?
I mean, I care about the climate. First, I care about the climate for obvious reasons, because just this is the planet where we're living in, and I especially care because I believe that when you're the CEO of a communication group as big as Havas, with 22,000 colleagues, we operate in more than 100 countries, we have clients in every sector. As a communication head, I have the power, and we have collectively the power to influence people behaviors. So I believe this power is giving us a real responsibility, and I believe my responsibility as at the head of this company is to make sure that we onboard ourselves on a meaningful transition journey, but also we onboard all our clients into this transition journey. And I believe when you have the power of making the world a better place by your action, just let's do it.
Did you have a moment in your life where you're like, now you feel it's becoming more urgent? Did you have a little bit of an awakening at one point where it's like, now I'm gonna do something? Because you were pretty young when you took all the exactly, compared to some of your peers. Was there a certain point where you felt this is now, or was it clients who came to you? What was?
But maybe just to give you a kind of family background.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in a family where climate was always very important.
Yeah.
Pollution was a big issue in my family, and my dad, when I was a kid, I remember I was like 8 years old, and we were in Paris at the airport, and he told me, Yannick, can you smell? I said, what? Yeah. It's very polluted. You will see one day, this is going to be the biggest issue for the humankind. And then he developed electric vehicles. We were one of the first group to develop that. So I think from childhood, I've always developed a sense of pollution, how we can make a change. And very early on, when I was a teenager, I was doing some readings about the impact of industrial revolution on the greenhouse gas emission. The planet was warming up. It's probably the case like 30 years ago, to be honest.
Which is crazy.
And I said, we need to do something, guys. I mean, it's great, but we need to leave a planet. I mean, I like to think that I will leave a planet in a better state than what it was when I was young. So now that my generation is in power, is in command, I think we need to do something collectively.
So as you say, you talk a bit about the responsibility and advertising is such a tricky thing, because what is it we do? There's a lot of talk about advertising. It's a proven driver of growth, obviously, and so how can those two things coexist? Do you believe that there's a way of creating a way forward where we can do growth in a better way?
Yeah, I mean, it's been 8 years now that we changed the mission of the Havas Group. Our mission is to make a meaningful difference to brands, businesses, and people. And by making a meaningful difference to brands, businesses, and people, we have to act for the planet, and we have to act to fight against climate change. And we have been talking very early on to our clients to explain that it was a very important point. We have been doing a study for the past 15 years called Meaningful Brands, where we ask a very simple question to people. The question is, if these brands come to disappear, would you care? For more than 75% of the brands, they could disappear and no one would care. So we deep dive into those results to try to understand, because it's a big problem for brands and for companies. And we understood that in addition of, let's say, what we call the functional benefits, so the price and the product, what this product brings to me, what does it bring to society in general, and what does it bring to the planet? And we found out that clear evidence that when a company is doing good for the planet, people will buy more significantly their product. And at the end, I believe that making the world a better place, fighting against climate change, is also a good thing for the business. And this is why I've been a strong advocate of this cause, of this noble cause, because I believe that in my role, we can make those two objectives coexist. And this is why I believe this is important, that I spend a lot of my energy working on that.
And I think it's such a tricky thing these days, because the more we talk about and the more we talk about products, there's a lot of activism around, should advertisers, should brands, certain categories, should we promote fossil fuels, should promote fossil fuel cars, and there's a lot of finger pointing going on. So where do you sort of feel that the responsibility of agencies sort of begins and stops? Do you feel we're living up to our responsibility right now, or do we need to be even more?
But first, it exists a lot of regulation in different countries.
Yeah.
If you take France, I'm French, so if you take France, by example, we have some regulation.
Yeah.
What matters to me is how can we go into that transition?
Yeah.
I mean, how can we convince brands that they need to evolve, that they need to change, and that they need to do their own transition.
Yeah.
And sometimes they need to invest. My point is, I strongly believe that a brand that would not invest into this transition will be out of business in 10 years.
Yeah, because now you talk about your peers more in general, some of those CEOs, some of those companies that you work with. How much do you feel that this is a top priority right now when you engage?
I mean, I would say it has been a top priority those last years. I remember being in Cannes 8 years ago. We all signed a pledge with the UN, and Havas was in charge of climate change of the group, so we have been working a lot on this topic. I would say this year it's a bit disappointing, to be honest with you, this Cannes. Last year the planet and the meaningful transformation was in every conversation. So this year it's all about AI, which is great. I mean, I love innovation, disruption, but I mean, AI is important, it's going to change a lot of things, but let's not forget on what's the most important. Let's not forget of meaningfulness, and let's not forget climate change is still happening. You can see in Cannes, we have a bit right now of a hurricane, but it's not like that at all.
The camera is going to blow away in 2 seconds.
Climate change is real, it's just right there. So
your sort of passion is obviously contagious. Do you feel when you go in and you have to talk to your shareholders, what are some of those tough conversations like? Can you get them on board this thing?
Like 6 years ago,
we at Havas, we're going to do a difference. We're going to take planet.
I would say 6-7 years ago, public shareholders, they were listening, but
gave us dividends.
But what about the money? But for the past 2 years, it has radically changed. Now we have what we call ESG conference. So I got asked questions by analysts, by investors. What are you doing for the planet? What are you doing for gender equality, for diversity? So I think it has completely changed. I mean, I believe that a company that is not on a meaningful journey, first, they won't be able to hire anyone. It would be impossible. Then they won't be able to have clients, because no clients during the RFI are asking about our credential in that field, and they won't have investors. So like 2/3 of the free float of Vivendi, the mother company of Havas, is what we describe as ESG investors. So they care because they know that Vivendi is engaged in this journey. We have clear data points. A big part of the bonus of our leaders around the world is based on ESG criteria, including the planet, which is for the biggest proportion of it. So I would say that today, compared to 5 years ago, the interest of investors, clients, and talents are fully aligned on that journey.
And so do you feel, because you talk about talent, and obviously advertising is a creativity business, it's no better than the people whom you are lucky to have working within Havas. Do you feel there's been a change, I mean, in the years you've been in Havas, for the talent that comes into the business and how they feel about climate?
Yeah, I mean, I used to say, like 20 years ago, all the job interview, they were asking about gender equality. 10 years ago, it was about the planet. Unfortunately, for the last 2 years, it's about the ability to work remotely. But planet still matters.
No, that's good.
But I believe, I mean, I have so many great examples of creative campaigns that we have been making that have been so much positive to the world that, I mean, honestly, I'm really proud of the work the teams have been doing all over the world.
And you talked about the shareholder meetings. You talk about the maybe increasing scrutiny, in fact, on environment and social issues. What are some of the tough questions they ask, and what are some of the tough questions you ask yourself when it comes to these topics?
It's interesting. So this year at our shareholder meeting last April, we presented for the first time our climate strategy.
Yeah.
So we presented, it's online, you can see it, climate strategy for the Vivendi Group, mother company of Havas.
Yeah.
And honestly, to be honest, we had some pretty tough questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I think our investors are even more tough than us on climate change.
Yeah.
They don't want to invest on companies that is not making a positive impact.
Yeah.
So
that's a good positive driver. Somebody
Yeah.
gives you a bit of
Yeah.
stick to stay on track.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So what would you feel right now is the biggest challenge you see on climate right now for Havas going forward?
For Havas, I think it's how we can make sure to engage all our clients, 100% of our clients on this journey.
Yeah.
What I tell the team, we need to avoid by any cost greenwashing.
Yeah.
We want to really make sure that the clients who are engaging with are serious about it, they mean it. Because the last thing I want is a lack of authenticity on that matter.
Yeah.
So that's point number one.
Yeah.
And point number two is how to become meaningful ourselves. How can we reduce our carbon footprint?
Yeah.
So we are engaged into a huge transition. We have invested a lot of money to make sure we can reduce everything, changing the materials, the lights, reducing the travel that are not necessary.
Yeah.
So doing tons of things. So it's both a combination of our clients avoid greenwashing, and let's make sure that ourselves, we would be the first to be really carbon neutral, and not just by offsetting our emissions, but by reducing until we cannot reduce anymore.
And how do you feel right now compared to some of your other peers in the big advertising groups? How do you feel you're doing?
No,
Is this a horse race? Who is getting first?
I mean, I think we have been, it's fair to say that we have been pioneer on that field, on that topic, but I mean, all my peers, they understand the utmost importance of this subject. So I would say that all the industry is engaged into this journey, I believe. I hope, at least that's what they say.
Do you feel now, because one thing is campaigning and advertising, do you feel that we need to advertise in a different way? Do we need to engage in different product conversations? Do we need to shift behaviors in a new way? Do we need to rethink how we engage people and citizens?
What's interesting, we have been doing a lot of work those past 6 months around AI and production, and I realized that 50% of the content produced is not really used. Can you imagine the waste? First. Number two, now we are integrating in all our media plan what we call a carbon calculator. So the clients, they can see how much carbon this type of modeling media is consuming. So they can adapt to different media model to make sure they can reach the same audience and with much less carbon emissions. So I think it's a key point. Key point of differentiation for Havas, by the way. Thank you, Thomas.